Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Madeleine Templeton. We're going to be discussing her amazing book, Understanding Socialism. Available for purchase through Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, pretty much wherever books are sold. But people, if you want to gather everything that Madeleine has in store, well, do yourself a favor and head directly to her personal site. And that's AuntKitty'sCorner.com. There you'll find more information on Madeleine herself, more information on this fantastic book, as well as find another book that she's written. This one is a poetry book. It's called Poems from the Green. Now, people, keep it in mind, those are the two books that are available right now. But you're going to want to check back in frequently, because this book that we're discussing today, Understanding Socialism, there is a sequel that is still in creation. So it's not available for purchase just yet. But check back into AuntKitty'sCorner.com frequently to get the next one the moment it becomes available. And that one is entitled Understanding the Dangers of Socialism for Students. I'm telling you, these are books you're going to want to add to your shelf. Head back on over frequently. Pick them up the moment they become available. One more time, that's AuntKitty'sCorner.com. And before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity and point out that Madeleine was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best advertising firms in the business. And of course, you already know I'm talking about CITI of Books. So listen to me. For my writers out there, I hope you're listening in closely. If you've gone through your process, you have spent what seems like countless amounts of hours creating your masterpiece, and now you finally have reached the finish line, although you find yourself in a precarious position because, well, now you need help moving the book you just finished writing. Well, I'm going to give you some fantastic advice. Contact CITI of Books. People, they're one of the best in the business to do it, and this is exactly what they specialize in. So head on over to cityofbooks.com today and gather all of the ways that their fantastic team is going to help maximize your creative endeavors. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Madeleine here on the line. Now, right there in the title, people, listen, there's no beating around the bush. All right, you understand the discussion we're having today. We're going to talk about some socialism. We're going to talk about some socialistic traits and, of course, comparing, contrasting. Now, I'm really looking forward to this for a number of reasons. First and foremost, and let's just tackle the elephant in the room. When it comes to socialism, this is a hot topic in pop culture today. This is what seems like something that comes up now in every political debate. So this is something that you either have had conversations about yourself, or maybe stopped talking to certain people because of their personal beliefs with regards to this matter. I mean, this is, like I said, a hot topic, okay? And I'm not, that's not a trial and hyperbole here. This is truly what it is. And what I love so much about this is, listen, regardless of your political background, regardless of your particular ideology, we can have conversations about this, and we don't need to agree on everything. And I actually love that, because here's the thing, people. At a certain point, I don't know when it happened, but I feel like all of a sudden, the political sphere that we're in nowadays seems to be, if you are on the right, you believe everything the right believes, and that's it. And vice versa. If you're on the left, you believe everything the left believes, and that's it. We don't have conversations anymore. We don't really try to see other people's opinions anymore, or at least that's what it seems like. I feel like there's a lot of division. And when it comes to socialism, it's a hot topic because it really is always a battle between socialist and capitalism. And I get it. Here in America, we're a capitalistic society. Myself, I benefit from a capitalistic society. I'm an entrepreneur. This is my bread and butter. This has always been my livelihood. I've owned multiple businesses, and a lot of you out there know this. But here's the kicker. And I get it. They're conflicting, and it's, can't really happen, or maybe it can to certain degrees. But in a perfect world, my ideology, if I could choose it, would be a mixture of capitalism and socialism. Because listen, there's an argument that can go both ways with both ideologies. And I think that this is a fantastic discussion to have. And I promise you, people, we're only going to scratch the surface here today. Okay. By the time we've concluded, you're going to run to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, AuntKitty'sCorner.com. Can I just say, I love saying that website. I know there's a story behind it, but AuntKitty'sCorner.com. You're going to want to pick up your copies. You're going to want to get lost in it, and you're going to want to create conversations. And at the end of the day, don't fight each other. Just have a nice civil discussion. I like it. I think that's what we can do here. Madeleine, this is a fantastic treat to have you here with us. First and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. It's great being here.
Absolutely. Listen, the pleasure is all ours, okay? I fully believe that what you're doing here, again, is something that will generate conversation. And I think that there is something beautiful about the fact that, listen, not everybody will agree with what you're saying. And that is the wonderful thing about just human nature, right? Is those disagreements and the conversations that we can formulate through those disagreements. Or even those, the ones that we can come to a unanimous decision with, right? Because I believe your book offers so much value and a lot of great topic points of discussion. So thank you for being here. Thank you for writing the book. And before we jump into it.
My pleasure.
Of course. Madeleine, before we jump into the pages, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
I'm from Washington, D.C. I was born at George Washington Hospital. I grew up in the Bethesda, Maryland area. I went to college at Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And when I went to college, I thought I wanted to major in international relations. But as I went through the course load, I realized that my passion was for history. So I switched my major over to history and took a lot of history classes. And there I fell in love with the subject. And I can even say, like, today I'm kind of like the family historian, because when we get together for holidays and events, I'm the one taking pictures and taking videos and putting them on DVD and making scrapbooks and things like that. So I feel like I'm the family historian. I also keep journals, and I'm very good at dating things. So I document things and date them. So I feel like I am a little bit of a historian, and I probably got that from being a history major at college. And in my life, I've pursued a musical career, and I am a poet.
Wonderful. Well, Madeleine, this is a treat. I think everybody listening in right now the moment you talked about the family historian, we all went to a particular person in our family. I know I did, right? The holiday season is upon us. We just passed by Thanksgiving. All my family got together. And of course, there was that one aunt that was like, okay, everybody get together. We got a photographer. This is the color palette that we're all going to be dressed in. And let's take some family photos. And of course, it seemed like a tedious endeavor in the moment, and arduous to say the least. But we are all very grateful because now we have these fantastic photos. And, every family needs one, Madeleine. So thank you again, Madeleine. I know we have a lot of information to discuss here. So without further ado, let's jump right in. The anchor is all about your book, Understanding Socialism. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, I was inspired by my niece. It was the summer of 2019, and I was vacationing with my family at their farm in Virginia for summer vacation. And it was dinner time, and my dad was watching his nightly news on the TV, and politics came up. And I asked my niece, Reagan, I said, Reagan, do you know what socialism is? And she responded, I've heard the word, but I don't know what it means. I thought, wow, what a loaded question to ask a teenager. Mm-hmm. So I'm not very good at explaining things, but I am good at writing. So after that vacation, I came back to my apartment and got on my computer and started writing what I thought was on socialism. I started writing the first copy, and I came up with the first draft around Thanksgiving time. So I was very happy that I got somewhere. But it's gone through many rewrites, many drafts, and it took me about 3 years for the completion. I released it in 2022.
Madeleine, I love what you said. And listen, when you said that you posed the question to your niece and she had a difficult time explaining it, it brought up something for me, because I think that there are a lot, especially nowadays, right, where socialism and socialist is a demonized term to a certain degree, right? And again, as I mentioned when we first started, I am unapologetically, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm a socialist because, as I mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur by trade. So I benefit from a capitalistic approach in society. But I do have my personal views where I think, again, in a perfect world, if we had certain areas that could be benefited from a socialistic perspective, I think that could be the case. But you get to the point where it's difficult to explain, and I agree because it is a convoluted term now. At least I feel so in today's day, right?
It's a loaded question.
It is a loaded one, right? And there's also a lot of varying degrees to socialism and the extent of how far it goes. And a lot of times people view socialism and they view it as a synonymous term with communism, what of course it is not. But through interpretations, that can get convoluted and muddied a bit. Madeleine, talk to me about inspiration behind this, because of course we know it started through your niece, but this could have been something you personally wrote, kept on your personal shelf, and then verbally told your families, but you didn't. You took it a step further. You published the book for the masses. What inspired you to do that?
Well, I really wanted to reach out to the youth of America, and my niece was sort of the catalyst, and I wanted to let them know about the dangers of socialism. In my book, I start off a little bit about the history of, I introduce Karl Marx and a little bit of the history of his philosophies of socialism and communism. And then I go into Russia and the old USSR and China, Mao Zedong, and Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany, and the current day Venezuela situation. So I get a little bit deeper into the histories, and I would really like the youth of America to understand what socialism is, and so that's where I'm at.
Perfect. Okay, so this is an educational book geared towards the youth, right? And of course, as we always say, the children are the future, right? So we're wanting to set them up with a wealth of knowledge to carry them forth. Fair assessment?
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, listen, Madeleine, what would you say was a highlight for you? Or maybe highlight has the wrong connotation. But throughout this process, was there anything that maybe surprised you that you weren't anticipating before you began?
Yes, there was something. When I first came up with my first draft, I was citing my sources as I was using the internet as my source, and I wrote down as my source the internet. And this is very novice. I was like a newbie about it, and somebody gave me the suggestion. They said, "Oh, you need to write the whole source, like where you actually got the information from, because the internet is too vast of a thing, right?" So I made that mistake early on, and it took me a while. I had to redo a lot of the historical research, and do it the right way, where you're actually citing the actual source. And I do that throughout the book, and I have a lot of quotes, and I cite a lot of things. So it put me on the right path, let's just say, to be able to write a historical book.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Madeleine. With my next question, I want to try to get a little more to the heart of the matter. Now, you mentioned the dangers of socialism, and listen, I'm there with you. Okay, I understand. That is also a loaded concept. And I also believe that there are some pitfalls to socialism, right? It's not all just roses and butterflies. But since you brought it up, Madeleine, talk to us from your perception. What do you feel are some of the dangers of socialism?
Well, I feel like some of the dangers of socialism are censorship, growth of government, mandates, lack of religious, being able to worship your religion, things of that nature are components of socialism. And the book is a profile of America in 2022, and that was at the end cusp of the COVID pandemic, if you remember. And a lot of these things were happening in our American society. And in my book, what I do is I weave situations like what things that Stalin did and things that Mao Zedong did, and weave them into current day American society. So I make parallels between what happened then and what's happening now. So the book is kind of like a proof, and I prove something in the end. And I'm not going to let you know what that is. You have to pick up the book and read it yourself to to figure out what I finally do prove. But it's significant, and it's important for people to know and to understand what's going on in our American society today and what's going on with our government.
Yeah, people, I'm telling you, I think that this is a book that needs to be on everybody's shelf. As I mentioned when we first began, the danger I feel like we're currently dealing with from a societal standpoint, right, from a macro standpoint, is we're just not having conversations anymore. And I think that's probably more dangerous than so many things. Regardless of how you feel with regards to the concept of socialism, whether you agree with it totally, you disagree with it totally, you have some varying beliefs where certain things you agree, things you don't. To me, it's scary. And maybe it always was scary, but I think now I'm in a different chapter in life where I'm raising my own family, and I'm forced to now believe, or I'm forced to now think and view the upcoming world that I am leaving behind for my children.
So it's important.
And
right.
It brings things into a different perspective. And again, when we get to the concept of no longer having conversations, right, where it literally, I wish it was hyperbole, but it really is, from a political standpoint, it truly is so much of right aligning with the right and left aligning with the left, and we are not meeting in the middle ground anymore. And again, maybe that's always been the case, but I don't believe it to be the case. I think when I was in my late teens, early 20s, even in my 30s, it seemed like things were a little bit easier to formulate opinions with. And now it's just, again, it's completely divisive. This book is going to help tremendously. At least, again, for me, I look at it and I'm like, at the very foundation, it creates awareness, it creates discussion. And I think the beauty of America and the beauty of, again, our human family is, listen, people, there is nobody that you should agree with 100% of the time. My wife, my closest confidant, the mother of my children, I don't even agree with her 100% of the time. Okay? And I know she doesn't agree with me 100% of the time. I mean, she'll be the first one to tell you that one. But listen, we are still able to have a successful marriage. We are able to have a successful partnership because a lot of times, conversation can break down barriers. Listen, at the end of the day, I could sit here, I could talk to Madeleine for hours. Okay? I'm engulfed in everything we're talking about. I think the subject matter is that loaded, and it has a lot to offer, but the onus is on you. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, AuntKitty'sCorner.com are where you have to go. While you're at it, there's two other books that I had mentioned before, Poems from the Green, and then the sequel to Understanding Socialism, which isn't released just yet, but will be very shortly. Understanding the Dangers of Socialism for Students is also on the horizon. As we close out of here, Madeleine, I'd love to give you an opportunity to go into one of your other titles, dealer's choice, because nobody knows the books as well as you, but please pick one of your other books and tell us a little bit more about it.
I have a poetry book that I recently released with my poetry group. Poets on the Green Line is the name of the group, and the book is called Poems from the Green. And I have a poem from there if you'd like me to read it. But there is one thing that I would like to mention, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
I author Understanding Socialism from the perspective of Aunt Kitty. So in my musical career and in my poetry career, I have an artist name, and that's Kitty. So my friends and family mostly call me Kitty nowadays. So my niece knows me as Aunt Kitty. So I authored the book from Aunt Kitty's perspective, and I have a chapter in there called Aunt Kitty's Journey, and that way you can get a little bit of my perspective and Aunt Kitty's philosophy. And at the end, I say, "This, at the end for now, love your Aunt Kitty." So I really write the book to my niece. And in doing that, I want to be able to relate and reach out to other youth and teens of America and have them be able to relate to me as an aunt, too. You know, like kind of the aunt-niece-nephew relationship, you know.
Absolutely.
Somebody who's going to tell you something. You know, so I'm pretty proud of that. And, you know, I'm single myself, and I have a brother, and he has a daughter, and so I'm his aunt. And that's one strong part of my personality. So I want to let everybody know that I author it from the perspective of Aunt Kitty. So that's why my website is called AuntKitty'sCorner.com, where you can find my music, my poetry, a little bit about my background of writing and things like that too. So anyway, I wanted to say that.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Listen, I knew there was a story behind it. I didn't know if it was appropriate for me to ask, but listen, I thank you for going into it, and I appreciate it. Here we go. Madeleine, you mentioned a poem, and I can think of no better way to close out. Please, whenever you're ready, if you have the poem there for us, we are all ears.
Oh, sure. Sure. This poem is called Her Last Gift. It's dedicated to my friend Shisha Fraser McKee. A green emerald earring, a dazzling drop of gold, a gem from her heart, decorative and bold, a gift, one of many throughout the years, a special earring, this one two-tiered, a white snowflake pear, a fleur-de-lis, the simple rose to adorn my ear, cooking aprons and mittens in the winter, a red velvet cake at Valentine's, a festive holiday, bottle of wine, the gift of music, a gateway to your soul, the gift of friendship, the gift of love, the gift of your voice. Truly your spirit lives on in all whom you touched with your gentle kindness that glowed to everyone it showed. Now I'll always have your drop of gold in a green emerald earring.
So the poem, and I'm not sure the origin story behind it, but what it did for me is it as you're talking about certain things that remind you of this individual, it then transported me to my own circle of family or friends, but individuals that are no longer with us. And it really brought me down memory lane. And I love to see what's so amazing about art is how it can elicit so many different emotions. And it's that old adage of, it's all based in the interpretation, right? And the interpretation varies based upon the individual. But I love the fact that poem, which was the first time I had ever heard it, I don't know you, I don't know the individual you speak of, but how it can connect with me and resonate on such a level where it's making me think of individuals that have passed on, that are no longer here.
They were very dear,
exactly.
Very dear to you and close.
Yeah, that is a beautiful poem, Madeleine. Thank you very much. People, that was just one. The book is filled with so many of them. I'm telling you, there's a lot happening here.
Oh, the poetry book is a poets from the Green Line. It's a group, a community of poets in the Washington D.C. area, and we got together and put together a collective book of poetry. It's kind of like an anthology chapbook of all of our poetry over the past several years that we've been together as a group, and so it's a group work. It's not just my own. It's group work.
I love that. People, I'm telling you, it starts with understanding socialism. It moves on then to poems from the green. Check back in frequently for understanding the dangers of socialism for students. All will be available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and AuntKitty'sCorner.com. Head on over there today. Get lost in all of it. Madeleine, this has been a true pleasure, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.